and 3 children.
Wrongly convicted.
Your son's position is that she shot the children and then herself.
Now,
It's been many years that we have been quiet.
the parents break their silence.
Chris wrote you a letter explaining what took place.
The letter gave us the answers that we didn't know before.
Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today is going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
Get ready to take care of you. It was early morning in June 2007 when Christopher Vaughn, his wife Kimberly, and their 3 children, 12-year-old Abigail, 11-year-old Cassandra, and 8-year-old Blake, piled into his red SUV for a surprise 3-hour road trip to a water park. They never made it. A motorist found Chris limping along the highway with gunshot wounds to his left wrist and leg. His wife and all 3 children shot dead in his SUV. The gun lay at Kimberly's feet. 5 years later, a jury convicted Chris of murdering his family, and he is now serving 4 life sentences. Bill Clutter was appointed as the fact investigator on the case in 2007, but has refused to let it go for the past 14 years because he says Chris is an innocent man. Here's Bill explaining the case.
On June 14, 2007, there was a 911 call from a motorist. He encountered Christopher Vaughn. Chris had 2 gunshot wounds. One of the wounds was to his left wrist. It passed under the wrist, and it was actually deflected by a silver watch. But the second shot was through his jacket, and it passed in this direction, entered the left leg. It exited out the leg and into the driver's door. The police found the family vehicle, and inside was Kimberly in the passenger seat. She had a single gunshot wound just below her chin, and then the 3 children were in the back seat. All 3 of them had been shot twice. Chris was transported to the hospital. The admitting nurse asked him about his insurance. He made a statement to the effect that, "My wife usually keeps that. She should be here any minute." During the interrogation, Chris spoke about his family as if they were still alive. When the police suggest, well, did she shoot the kids? Every time he would defend her and tell them there's no way she could have shot the kids. Chris was the only person that walked away from that alive, but yet he was unable to explain what happened. The defense's theory at trial was that he had dissociative amnesia and was unable to remember. The state's version was he staged this to look like a murder-suicide. Police locked in on him as a suspect and disregarded all kinds of evidence that pointed away from Chris. Based on what I know about the case, his case is a travesty of justice. He's an innocent man sitting in prison.
We'll meet Bill later when he explained how he used a reenactment, replicating the interior of the SUV, trying to prove Chris's innocence. But first, Chris's parents, Gail and Pierre, have agreed to give their first national television interview. They say the media and the prosecution painted their son as a womanizing monster who wanted to be free of his family. But Gail and Pierre say that's just simply not true.
On June 14th, 2007, our lives changed forever.
I couldn't believe that Chris or Kim did this. I thought maybe it was a carjacking or a mugging.
But the media pointed to Chris right away because he was the only survivor.
Every article started out accusing him of killing his wife and kids. The media was 100% biased. They already had him guilty.
To shoot your children at close range, there's no soul in that person. He feels nothing, no compassion, no remorse.
The prosecution put on this big show with these horrific scenes from the crime, and Chris was not seeing the same pictures. He had monitors in front of him, but they were blank. And so the jury thought he was seeing the pictures of the crime scene and not reacting to them.
The public defender told Chris, do not make eye contact, do not fidget, do not make comments.
Jurors say Vaughn seemed not to care whether his wife and kids were alive or dead.
He showed no emotions really at all. What happened to his family? It was pretty sad.
The personalities and stuff led us all to feel that he was guilty.
When he listened to his lawyer and didn't have any responses, they said, well, the guy's cold and heartless. Chris's attorneys told us not to speak to the media.
We were told to fly under the radar and not share our opinions or our thoughts. Since we did not get to make comments,
We were just as guilty as he was.
it's been many years that we have been quiet.
We are very grateful for the opportunity to meet and talk to Dr. Phil. It is important for people to hear Christopher's story. Now it's time for Chris to come home.
When Chris was home for 9 days before his arrest, his parents never asked their son the one question everyone wants to know.
We never got a chance to talk to Chris about this tragedy. After this event occurred, we brought Chris home to our house, and he stayed with us for approximately 9 days before the police took him away.
I never really directly asked Chris what happened that day or what happened in the car. He was so much in shock that we figured that we were going to have him home and that he would not be arrested, and when he come out of the shell, we could find out then.
In all the times we have gone and visited Chris, or letters or emails, we have never broached the subject.
We didn't want to put the pressure on him to open up, and we always felt he was innocent, and he didn't do it.
Well, Pierre, Gail, I'm glad to meet both of you, but I'm sorry for the circumstance.
Yeah,
I wish we were here talking about something else.
I'd prefer it.
But hopefully something constructive can come out of this. Tell me, at this point, how are you two doing about all of this? As a father of two sons, I can't even imagine what it must be like to have your son locked up for all of this time and no hope of anything changing, and believing and knowing in your heart that the wrong man is in jail, that he's innocent, and you all believe 100% to the core of your soul that he did not do this crime.
That's correct. We believe 100% from day one that he did not do this.
And you agree?
Yes, sir.
And most parents would. Most parents believe in their child, so you're certainly not objective about that. But you say you received a call from a reporter asking if Chris and Kim had marital issues, right? They were looking to see if this was an extension of some domestic violence, some issues, some problems that would explain how this had happened.
Well, the reporter asked me if Chris and Kim got along well together. Mm-hmm. How did they get well along together? And
this was before you knew what had happened, right?
I did not know this had happened.
They were baiting you when they said this.
They were, and I was just happy that somebody was talking about my kids. And I, just started talking like a mom, proud mom. And then I started thinking about this and say, oh, maybe I should find out where this is going to be used. And she says, oh, haven't you heard? 4 of them are dead. And she was talking about my family.
That's how you learned of it. You had no idea.
That is how I found out.
Oh, I'm so sorry. What did you think when you heard that? Did you believe it?
Part of me kind of said, no way, this can't be true. But the other part said, I don't have any information, so it could be.
Right. How did she tell you what she had learned?
Yes, she did. And we didn't know who the lone survivor was at that time. I tried Chris's cell many times. I tried Kimberly's cell also. I ended up calling his work. He took a vacation day that day. So we had no way of getting a hold of him or anything like that. So after that, we tried going to the police and contacting the police department, Illinois State Police, anybody. And they said they didn't know anything about it. I originally believed it was a carjacking.
How did you ultimately wrap your head around this?
I actually don't think we have explained it to ourselves.
You still haven't been able to make sense of it.
Wednesday.
My 9-year-old son and I have an abusive relationship.
How about I bite your shoulder next right here?
He swears, he hits, he throws things.
An extreme case.
You're being bullied in your own home.
An extreme intervention.
My colleagues and I were using crisis intervention procedures which we're specially trained in.
Don't touch me!
I'm sorry, you kicked me. You're being touched again.
Talk about that experience and how that wound up.
That's Wednesday. Then on Thursday.
Oh, I'm so scary, right? I always beat you, right?
This is in front of the child?
You will lose him. You should lose him.
Why can you not look at her when she's talking to you?
She's right.
That's Thursday.
Eventually, it was confirmed that this had happened. And, Chris's position is that this was a murder-suicide, that she shot each of the children in the back seat 2 times, and then herself under the chin. Was there any reason that you would have thought, believed, predicted, or feared that your daughter-in-law would do something like this?
No, there was no suggestion of that. She'd always been a great mom, and she got along with our family pretty darn well. But I just couldn't believe it, no.
Me either. I mean, like Gail said, we got along with Kim very well. And we knew she was under some stress from graduating college and moving into a new house and getting the kids in school and everything like that. But, I originally believed it was a carjacking or something else gone bad.
So you knew your son didn't do it because you knew that he wasn't capable of that because of what you knew about him, and you thought the same thing about her, that this just wasn't.
Correct.
So how did you ultimately wrap your head around this? How did you square this up in your mind? Because I know that you had to, at some point, reconcile that this had in fact happened, that your grandchildren were dead, that she was dead. How did you explain this to yourselves?
I actually don't think we have explained it to ourselves.
You still haven't been able to make sense of it?
No. We understand more now.
And what is it you understand?
Well, we understand that our heart was true, that Kimberly might have been having some reactions to her medication.
And she was on medication that has some profound side effects, right?
Correct.
Yes.
And those side effects could be severe mood swings, paranoia, aggression, things that could explain this kind of behavior in rare form. I mean, it doesn't happen
No, it doesn't
to
happen
everybody
often.
that takes it, obviously, or it wouldn't be on the market, but it is known, it is listed as creating a kind of ideation that would explain what happened here.
Yes.
Right.
Now, Kim had written an email to Chris about her mental state, and this was on May 24th of that same year. And she said, the doctor, we won't use the name, thinks that with stopping the migraine medication, not the Topamax, but the other one, will also help stop my anxiety. I told him that you had noticed, and I had noticed, a big personality change and anxiety change, and that I was lethargic, tired all the time. So this was something that isn't just what we call a post hoc explanation. This isn't something that's just manufactured after the fact as an explanation. This was a topic of conversation between them during this time frame, that they were talking about the medications and the effect it was having on her and her moods at the time.
I believe it was on their minds, but we had visited them in April around Easter. And then after that, we went on a Jeep Jamboree with Chris and Kim and Pierre and I. And they had not mentioned anything. We did have a little flare-up because she got upset that there was no Wi-Fi in the little town we were in, and we had to drive quite a distance so she could make sure her college paper was not late.
What did you see personality-wise with her?
Something that she threw a tantrum, and that was just not Kimberly.
Uncharacteristic of what you've seen
Very
before.
uncharacteristic.
How volatile did it get?
She was pretty high-pitched, screaming at Chris for not being able to provide the Wi-Fi that her computer needed to send her paper.
Yelling, screaming?
Yes, yelling, screaming, yes.
Unhinged at that moment?
Yes,
Okay.
she was.
We do have evidence that the children had referred to not wanting to bring friends around and things because she had shown some of this behavior and kind of flown off the handle and been unpredictable. Were you aware of that?
Not until we started cleaning out the house did we realize that there was problems.
Okay.
Their little girl came up to the door and asked to come in, and she says, "This is the first time I've ever been in this house." And she was supposedly Abby's best friend.
You never asked your son what happened that morning. You never asked him if he did this, didn't do this. Did you ever just straight up, point blank ask him what the hell went on the side of the road?
No. When we found him in the hotel after the police let him go at 2 a.m. in the morning in hospital gowns and bloody bandages, he was just in total shock. He was just not there. He just said he lost everything and there was nothing left to live for. When we brought him home, he was the same. He was just a shell. And I didn't feel the need to ask him because we believed that he didn't do it.
And he was interrogated for 20 hours in 2 days, correct?
20 hours in 1 day.
In the first day, it was 20 hours?
They brought him from the scene to the hospital, took his clothes, put him in back-to-back hospital gowns, treated his wounds, immediately brought him back to the police station and interrogated him from 9:30 in the morning till 2:30 at that night.
And then he went to the hotel. Then they interrogated him again the next day.
Correct.
During this time, he continued frequently to refer to his wife and children as though they were alive, both with paramedics and with police. He would say, well, you need to ask my wife. You need to ask Kim. She'll know this, she'll know that. When we come back, Gail and Pierre say the media painted their son as someone he's not. They'll tell us about that next.
The prosecution brought up the gentlemen's clubs. Chris was there 2, maybe 3 times.
Vaughn dropped more than $4,700 at the club. Within days, his family was found massacred in their Ford SUV.
I'm sitting here with the 2 incredible founders of Kind Campaign, helping girls.
A suburban dad will spend the rest of his life in prison for murdering his wife and 3 children. In fact, Christopher Vaughn was sentenced to 4 life terms in prison for the June 2007 murders. He killed his wife, Kimberly, 12-year-old daughter, Abigail, 11-year-old daughter, Cassandra, and 8-year-old son, Blake. They thought they were on their way to a water park when Christopher Vaughn pulled over their SUV and shot them.
Well, the case of Chris Vaughn, who was convicted of murdering his wife and 3 children, was not splashed across tabloid covers, but it was a case that the local media in Illinois took hold of and reported on long before Chris ever had his day in court. Now, Gail and Pierre say Chris was found guilty by the court of public opinion when the media painted him as someone that he's just not.
It's June 2007, and private investigator Christopher Vaughn is dropping major coin for private dances and drinks.
The prosecution brought up the gentlemen's clubs. Okay, Chris was there 2, maybe 3 times, but they blew it way out of proportion.
Chris never asked for any favors from the ladies at the Gentlemen's Club. He never received a lap dance or anything else. All they did is talk.
Vaughn dropped more than $4,700 at the club. Crystal Miller, an entertainer, said he was very timid, very shy, uncomfortable seeming. I remember him specifically stating that he did not have a family life. He said he did not have children. He was single for 5 years. Authorities say his words speak to his plan that was enacted soon after. Within days, his family was found massacred in their Ford SUV.
Chris's going to the gentlemen's clubs had nothing to do with this trial.
Prosecution based their case on all motive, but it was all lies.
Well, let's talk about that some. I said that this case did not grab national headlines because the Drew Peterson case had grabbed national headlines and was in the courtroom right across the hallway from this case, and it had gotten traction, so it kind of pushed this out of the headlines, but not locally. That media fried him up from day one, correct?
That is correct.
You began to find out some things that you didn't know. You had sent a lot of gifts, Christmas cards and things like that to the children. After the fact, you found a lot of those unopened, correct? They had never gotten to the children.
That is correct. They were Christmas presents. We were cleaning out the house, my sister and I and Pierre, and I opened the closet, and it's a large closet. And up on the top was tucked in 5 of the gifts that we had sent the children. They were unopened Christmas presents. They never got them. They never knew we cared enough about to send them.
Did you ask Chris about that?
Chris said he didn't really know what was in any closet in the house. He had his office, and that was his stuff. So he didn't know anything about the presents.
And how did you interpret that? So it wasn't him, according to him. He didn't know about it, so by extension, he didn't take those and withhold them from the children. So it must have been her. Why do you think she would do that?
I was at a complete loss as to why they were there. I never withheld any gifts from children, from grandparents. I assumed that she wouldn't either, and I didn't understand why she did that.
Chris had taken out $1 million insurance policy on Kim, and on her death, where did the $1 million go? Closed captioning provided by... The prosecution made a big point out of the fact that Chris had taken out $1 million insurance policy on Kim shortly before this happened. What did you make of that?
Well, it wasn't really shortly before. It was a couple of years. And it was on the advice of his
Financial planner. Because when Chris got the new job in Chicago, he was making a lot of money. Oh, $200,000 salary for a young man was very well. And so I advised him, and I talked about it, and we said, hey, you need to get a financial planner. You're not used to dealing with this kind of money. So he did, and the financial planner said, okay, you need to take out $1 million on Kimberly and $3.5 million on you, and this is what you need to do with your money. And it was all in a binder, and we presented that to our defender.
And he did that. He took out $1 million on her and $3.5 million on himself.
Yeah.
And those policies were in force at the time.
Yes, they were.
And on her death, where did the $1 million go?
$1 million went into holding with a lawyer until the trial was settled to decide what happens to the $1 million afterwards. Chris really didn't care about that. He didn't care about the money at all. He was willing to just give it up because he had lost everything. He didn't care about the money.
And it ultimately went to her family?
It did.
It did.
Now, he also wrote you a letter after some years finally explaining what took place. Here's an excerpt. It said, "I did not know how to or want to deal with what happened that morning. So I lied about not remembering how Kimberly shot my kids and then killed herself. We drove to the water park as Kim and I talked about the night before. Kim told me she felt sick. I pulled over and got out to give her a minute. When I was around the back of the truck, heading back towards my door, it sounded like the inside of the truck was exploding. I opened my door, saw the gun Kim was holding, and jumped into my seat to grab it. Kim fired at me. I fell back out the door, preparing to make another attempt. Kim looked at me and said, 'You will not take my kids. You killed them.' She then turned the gun on herself and fired. I got back in to check the kids. Nothing could be done. I thought to drive the truck. Kim was slumped, so I tried to buckle her. My hand shook badly. I couldn't drive the truck. I got to the road to get help. I was and am deeply ashamed that I failed to protect the kids. I'm ashamed that I drove Kim to do something so horrible. I'm ashamed that had she not shot herself, I would have taken the gun and shot her myself. I did not want to deal with what happened. I was completely unequipped to do so. I did not want to discuss why Kim did what she did. I did not want to repeat what she said to me before she killed herself. So I lied, saying I did not remember. I was certain that the investigation would make clear what happened. How could it not? I failed the kids. I drove Kim to do what she did. What she said was true. I was responsible. I would let the judge decide what my punishment would be. Saying that, I did not remember the morning of the tragedy was a mistake, and I am sorry." What was your reaction when you read that? When the police, the interrogators concluded, this guy's lying, they were right, just for the wrong reasons.
Did he remember everything that happened right then and there? I don't believe so.
Wednesday on an all-new Dr. Phil. An extreme case.
My 9-year-old son and I have an abusive relationship.
An extreme intervention.
Don't touch me!
I'm sorry, you kicked me. You're being touched again.
That's Wednesday.
Letter. What was your reaction when you read that?
It was terrible. But at the same time, he was telling us what we pretty much already knew, just how it happened. So yeah, it was another terrible day. But then we started thinking about it, and he poured his soul into that letter to let us know what had happened.
What do you think he means when he says, I'm to blame, I made her do this, I'm responsible, I drove her to this?
Well, they were pretty open in what they did, so she probably knew that he had visited the strip clubs. She didn't really like it when he traveled, and that was his job, traveling, so she was on her own a lot. That wasn't good.
Yeah, the letter gave us the answers of what happened and put together a lot of pieces of the puzzle that we didn't know before. It was a shock, no doubt about it, but it confirmed what we believed all along. I guess when Chris lost his entire family, you can't put yourself in his position, but he totally blames himself for what happened. maybe not how it happened or what led up to it, but because everybody's gone, he is a soft-hearted person throughout his life, and to lose his entire family in that short of time just tore him up.
So when the police, the interrogators concluded, this guy's lying, they were right, just for the wrong reasons. They thought he was lying about one thing when he was actually lying about something else, but he was lying. When he said, I don't remember, I don't know, they didn't believe him, and they were right. He did remember. They just thought he was lying about shooting them when he was lying about not wanting to say what happened.
At the time he was interrogated, he was such a zombie or such in shock. And like you said, he talked about his family still being alive. It wasn't till 10, 12 hours into the interrogation that he finally started referring to them in the past tense. Mm-hmm. So did he remember everything that happened right then and there? I don't believe so. But then he came, you know, he felt so guilty about all of this for all of these years that he was willing to accept his punishment.
Well, next, we're going to talk to the investigator who was assigned to Chris's case since 2007. He says he's never stopped searching for the truth. He's going to tell us what he has found when we come back.
A little over a year ago, Chris writes a 5-page letter to his parents explaining what happened. I was able to recreate what happened in that vehicle based on Chris's letter. I think this crime scene reconstruction provides newly discovered evidence that was not available at the time of trial.
Welcome to the Life
Without You.
Now that some of the COVID-19 restrictions have been lifted, we can have a studio audience back.
If you're going to be in the Los Angeles area and would like to attend a taping, go to drphil.com and click on Be Part of the Audience and select In Studio.
Tickets are free, and we can't wait to see you here.
Shortly before this all happened, Kimberly was prescribed a cocktail of medications, nortriptyline and Topamax. For Topamax, one of the warnings is if you're feeling anxiety or a change of personality to contact your physician. Well, 2 weeks before this happened, Kim, in an email to her husband, described exactly that. Topamax can cause depression, suicidal thoughts, and violence. That does give credence that this was a murder-suicide committed by Kimberly.
Well, Gail and Pierre's son, Chris, was convicted of murdering his wife and 3 children and is serving 4 life terms. Now, during Chris' 20-hour police interrogation, he revealed that his wife had a history of anxiety and migraines.
Are consistent where he's bleeding onto that seatbelt strap and there's a large saturation stain of blood. That's completely consistent with what he said happened. I think this crime scene reconstruction provides newly discovered evidence that was not available at the time of trial, which is the standard to get him a new trial and vacate the conviction.
Well, after Bill Clutter took apart the state's case and methodically put together a forensic theory of innocence, criminal defense attorney Jed Stone became interested in Chris's case, and Bill is joining us, and Jed is joining us virtually. Jed, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Thank you, Dr. Phil, for allowing the defense to tell their story of innocence.
Well, that's what I really want to do, is hear this part of the story, and we're going to talk to Bill in some detail and look at this reconstruction and have you walk us through it in a minute. Jed, in your opinion, from a legal standpoint, what went wrong with Chris's trial? And first off, should there ever have been an indictment given some of the inconsistencies with the grand jury?
We know that the grand jurors were told by a prosecutor and a police officer witness that the blood on the seatbelt was the blood of Kim's. And we know that not only was that wrong, we know that they knew it was wrong because a DNA expert had told the prosecution that that blood belonged to Mr. Vaughn. Now that's deeply troubling. It's wrong to lie. Additionally, every piece of scientific evidence, what I would call immutable, unchangeable facts, documented by the forensics, the science of the case, leads to the inescapable conclusion that this was a suicide by Miss Vaughn after the murder of her children and the shooting of her husband. My client is innocent, and we have the duty of presenting those facts to a court or to the governor or to wherever we can to get this man out of prison and back to his parents. He is an innocent man.
Do you believe that you have, with the work that you've done, established reasonable doubt from a forensic standpoint here? Do you believe that what you've put together reaches the critical mass of reasonable doubt?
Yeah, our crime scene reconstruction provides new evidence that wasn't available at the time of trial, and it would have made a difference in the outcome of the jury verdict, so yes.
I am convinced that there is evidence of actual innocence, that Mr. Vaughn is not guilty of the murder of his children or the murder of his wife, and that the prosecution misled the jury, resulting in an unreliable verdict, and we have to have our second day in court.
So what is it we're talking about? What happened in that car in 2007? Well, Bill is going to demonstrate what he believes and show us exactly what that is, and hopefully Jed can talk about how that would play out in presentation to a finder of fact, or whether that be the governor or it be in the courts. We'll talk about that when we come back. Upcoming shows, log on today. Tomorrow, Bill will do a reenactment of the crime based on Chris's recent letter to his parents, where he reveals a step-by-step version of what he says happened that early morning on June 14th, 2007. Bill says it all makes sense now, and he's going to show us why he believes Chris did not murder his family.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil. Convicted for killing his wife and children.
Jurors say Vaughn is a murdering sociopath.
But is he guilty?
They believe he must have staged the crime scene.
That after shooting her, he reached over here
to make it look like she shot the kids.
Or innocent.
There's some smeared blood here.
They're saying that this is new evidence in terms of whose blood was on that seatbelt.
All new Dr. Phil exclusive. That's tomorrow.
Plus, we'll hear from the former assistant state's attorney who believes Chris is right where he belongs. If you love true crime, you do not want to miss tomorrow. I want to thank all of my guests today. If you want more information about today's episode, log on to drphil.com. You can head over to my Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram and tell me what you think happened to Chris' family. Was it a murder, or was it a murder-suicide? Don't forget to follow and subscribe to my podcast, Fill in the Blanks. This week, I talked to legal expert and women and children's advocate, Wendy Murphy. You don't want to miss this. And grab your girlfriends for Robin's podcast, I've Got a Secret, where she shares many secrets on how to live your happiest and healthiest life.